our venison.
We'll swap the gold for a taxi, love. We'll grind across the Sahara, gazelle. I'll throw in my clutch and never stop. Oh, we'll cross the Sahara and never come back. A little old man jumped up from where he had been sitting like a bush in the vasty waste and flagged us down. Where's your baggage, father? This is the way I came, and this is the way I shall return. No baggage. He didn't like my smoking keef in the cabin either. It was bad enough for such a holy little man to have to sit next to me at all. I had to keep up my disguise. My sponsors insisted on homosexuality and keef for this adventure. I'm not a free agent, you see. Skirting of the desert toward the launching pad, I knocked as I had been instructed. The hotel know where I went? Was the fort having me followed? Who were the informers amongst those who received me so well? My 10 companions kicked off their sandals at the door and unveiled their dark faces as they entered, murmuring the elaborate passwords of greeting to our host, sweet singer of the Sahara. Be seated cross-legged around the edges of a woven reed mat, spread on the white sand floor of his windowless room whose walls were made of red mud. Some of the initiates had come from as far away as the Sudan on camelback, a painful journey of 6 weeks. I had come from even further across the desert wastes, where great rivers run away into the sands. The river hath more need of the fountain than the fountain hath need of the river. Here, the fountain bubbled up through his lips and ours from the great fossil underground river where the blind crocodile of Alamut has lurked for centuries in darkness. The sun, whose after image still burned on the backs of our eyes, had fallen over the edge of world, drawing the blue flood of night over the Sahara. We closed out the desert and sat with our eyes fixed on the diamond-hard white flame of the carbide kiki lamp, standing on the center of the mat beside the sheep's bladder full of keef, which I had brought from Morocco. I took my place in the circle and became the other initiates, one after the other, as I had been instructed to do, night after night. On the 40th night, when I took my place and became a link in the chain, I fell into, took impression of someone new to me and powerful. I glanced around the circle of dark brothers and recognized the black marabou from our left. We sang the canticle together around the white light of the kinky, and I knew that it was time for me to depart. I took leave of the initiates. Oh, the strange relaxation of it. Only I was alien as I had ever conceived of happiness. The assumptions in my fellow initiates' heads would have made any of my present compatriots This was not friendship. The heart here is all in the very moment. Everything else is bump and slow, meet and goodbye. and only the Brotherhood of the Assassins were sure as ritual continuity. The lasting, loyal heart is the one compounded and shared from all the little ones. These be the Libyan tribes of which I can speak, and most of them cared little then, and indeed care little now, for the king of the Medes. Without getting permission from the fort, I made a night start on a long journey to Insala. There I met a brother who was a sandal maker. He took me to the dances far outside the oasis, where our drums could not be heard from the fort. I slipped away before dawn on a journey of 11 days by camel. That took me across the Tadamite, burnt black as a parking lot in hell. I had a camel named the Inspector General, who examined every pile of curiously whitened stones, spaced like a giant game over the shining basalt surface of the Tadamite. I read Cervantes under the shade of a parasol tied to my back. My guide was veiled, as is the custom of the country, and I did not see his face once in all the 11 days of our journey. He left me within sight of the immense oasis of El Gorea. The old man of Buffalo Gorge sent black Mr. Papagoo to invite me to breakfast at dawn. The swift Sudanese ran ahead of me over the crusty white salt pan. The colonel had finished his night vigil and received me under a low dome he had built of Perrier bottles set into concrete. The interview came to nothing, but I played for an hour with his gazelles. In the middle of the night, I was called up to leave and found a very ancient truck with a throbbing diesel so hot it burned my left leg and thigh throughout the long journey. I sat next to a brother who did not recognize me because I was an American, and I gave him none of the signs when his own degree of initiation became apparent to me. He had one of the most amusing voices I have ever heard, for he possessed a whole vocabulary of noises, made with his soft palate and without opening his mouth. He ran up and down the saliva in our mouths. Only the driver had a voice that carried over the intolerable noise of the engine. Putain de tonnerre! He would suddenly holler when he heard the engine break rhythm. He reached for a long screwdriver and thrust it blindly into the vitals of the engine which burned between us and the cabin of the truck. He broke into a wailing song as he tickled the engine without taking his eye off the trail ahead. 2 days later, at nightfall, we reached the first well of brackish water and the sanctuary of Hassan Saba. I woke to find that we were halted in front of the narrow arched gateway to the hostelry of the Brotherhood. Black men in white robes and turbans were waving torches and boiling around the truck like bandits who had taken a prize. I insisted that I must stop there, although I knew I would not be allowed to visit the tomb in my present disguise. I stumbled into a long, narrow court surrounded by leaping white arches. At the far end, a fire of thorns blazed up in a room where men in white with dark bearded faces were huddled around it. I recognized the place from my dreams with a feeling of pleasure and security. There were about 20 people crowded into the smoke-blackened room, which had no window and no chimney. My eyes smarted as I stepped over several people to get into a far corner. I got out my little tins and machines to make a meal, but realized that it might be dangerous to light my gasoline primus in this place. In any case, it refused to work. Neither would my can opener, which cut my hand. As their fire blazed up and their water boiled, they began the laborious ceremony of making tea in teapots big enough for a doll's party. The fierce bearded faces were lit by the ring of firelight, and a polite voice, apparently from amongst them, asked me in impeccable French, "Why did the gentleman not take the plane?" I could not imagine from whom the question had come, but I answered, as politely as I knew how in Arabic, that the gentleman wished to give himself the pleasure of seeing the landscape, and of seeing them themselves. The man making tea handed me a tiny glass of the strong sweet stuff with a smile. Someone else plucked at a single-stringed instrument and began to sing in a voice like pebbles shaken in a can. "Oh, I got a chicken guardian, she's rich and covered with gold. We want to marry, but her father says no. Oh, we'll buy a taxi, my love, I tell her. You may wear 3 millions in gold on your neck, but you can't move out of that room. Goodbye, a taxi, my love, with the goal to cross the Sahara and never turn back. I fell asleep and dreamed of a girl with an eye like a keyhole. Her iris was the color of a muddy green river, with neither fleck nor speck of gold or brown. The pupil was big and clear, and I saw in it the reflection of a handsome young man, with dark curly hair, and eyes so strange a blue that they seemed white. The iris of her eye was curiously broken at the